So we must do two things, two great things together, to encompass that enormous new view that lies before us, but to encompass it within the framework of science, to see it within the whole categorical framework of science, and to see that these two are not separate, but that they are wedded. The bigness of the idea, the newness of the idea, the greatness of it is one with the structure of science, the structure of being itself.
So we must see that we're not tempted to put too much accentuation, too much stress on something which is not adapted to the time in which we live. May I still go on? You're not going to kick me out? That we move forward. So if we say, give attention to truth, where we are focused on the age of truth, the 6,000-year period, to the exclusion of all else, you see, where we narrow our vision to that and close ourselves off to there being anything further, anything new, anything more. We may say, and I've heard it said, that everything has been seen that can be seen. Huh? The revelation of truth is complete. This is a closed perspective, isn't it? Where we may feel that we have seen everything that could ever be seen about being, about science, about Christian Science. And so there is the tendency to peak there, if I may use that word, peak. I don't know why I connect that. I think, was it Abraham Maslow that talked about peak experiences? You know? It's something a little bit different, but in having learned about that at one point in time, I remember that example of what happens when you peak at a certain point. Some people have peaked in the 70s, some in the 50s, some in the 80s. And, so you go over to their house and they play all 80s music, or they drive an 80s car, or they have an 80s hairstyle or whatever. And the attitudes are all, so to say, coined by the 80s. You know what I mean? It's not a criticism, it's an example. It's just an example. And sometimes I can remember house hunting a couple of years back and being told that this particular house was going to be a retro 50s. And it was. When you got inside, everything was 50s, the sparkly stuff on the ceiling and the green carpets and so forth. And so just use that as an example of peaking. You see, we don't want to peak in the 6,000-year period, because there's still another 1,000-year period before us. And we should feel everything hasn't been seen. Even though we have the full revelation of the divine principle of truth, that there is something more. There's something we don't know yet. There's something we haven't seen yet. There's something new coming. And if we peak, then we stop. We stop there. And we get stuck there, and we get in a rut, and we get into the rut of old methods, old methodologies, old ways of working, you see. But being doesn't stop. We try to stop, but being doesn't stop. And the whole rest of the universe moves on, and eventually we are moved on too, because that is the office of the Christ, to eventually make us uncomfortable. Love makes us uncomfortable. If we try to hold on in an unnatural way to truth, truth in its wholeness, in its fullness, in its complete purpose, as we move on to the consciousness of love. So truth must be seen within the whole order of being. Within the whole order of being. And as we said, there are 7 days, not just 6. There are 7 synonymous terms, not just 6. And so every aspect of being will find its true meaning as it is put into the context of the whole. The context of the whole. And there it will find its validity. That sense of validity is so important, because if we try to hold back to truth, and you know, we may not do that consciously. I'm not saying that's a conscious, resolution to not go forward, or a conscious resolution to stick with the truth. Usually it's unconscious, something unconscious within us. And what can we do to assist, to help, to attend that birth? We can see that there is a birth going on, and that we want to participate with that birth, that we want to go with that birth, that there isn't anything in us that is unnatural in that birth. There isn't anything within us that isn't consistent with the whole order of being, with the divine order of being. And so that everything within me loves the whole order, wants to see the whole order, welcomes the whole order, is taking in, is opening up to take in that which we don't even know is there. We don't know what it is. We don't know what's coming to birth as love. But we can take that law of birth, of scientific obstetrics, and attend properly the birth of the new idea of the age of love, the new idea of divine science. In fact, that's what it says in that paragraph. To attend the birth of the new child or divine idea, you see. That we would detach mortal thought from its material conceptions. From every conception we have, be it positive or negative, about that birth, about that development, about that evolution. To attend properly the birth by detaching mortal thought from its material conceptions, and therefore allowing that birth to be natural, to be safe, though gathering new energy, you see. That's certainly what's happening. One feels it year by year by year, that this birth of the 7,000-year period is gathering new energy. Though gathering new energy, it cannot injure its useful surroundings. You see, it will not injure anything within us that is of the constituency of truth, that is of the nature of truth. Cannot injure its useful surroundings in the travail of spiritual birth. It isn't going to discard every beautiful thing that we have seen and learned about truth. It isn't going to disparage truth. It isn't going to shut truth out. It isn't going to say, you, truth, have had your day, and now give way to me, I am love. It's not a competition between truth and love. It's a, what would you say? It is a complementarity. They complement each other. They don't compete with each other, they complement each other. We'll see this, we'll touch this more and more as we go on this weekend. And so this idea cannot injure anything that has come before in the whole development of consciousness. A spiritual idea has not a single element of error. There just isn't a single element of error in this development, in this evolution, in this quality within us to open up, to feel. You see, truth asked us to be closed. You remember we were talking about that? We were closed by truth. Now we can open up. We don't open up to the world, we open up to the universe of love, to see what the universe of love is. And so it's an opening, it's a welcoming within us of the new. It's a standing in awe before the fact that there could be something more. Love is all about more. More than this you cannot ask. Higher than this you cannot go. Farther you cannot reach, you see. But love is about more. More, more, more. And when that is translated to us, love says, begin to see that there's more, that there's something higher, that there's something farther. And that's love, you see. That there is more. And so in this birth, what were we seeing? That spiritual idea has not a single element of error. And this truth removes properly anything that is offensive. So in this opening up, there will be no encountering of error. There will be no letting in of error, but it's the letting in of that which is completely new, which is something more, something that we never could think out, we never could dream of, and it's love. We are giving birth to the divine idea of love. Let's just finish that obstetrics paragraph. So, a spiritual idea is not a single element of error. There's no error in it. And this truth removes properly whatever is offensive. The way is made, the way will be made, that there will be nothing that offends this birth, nothing that, what do I want to say, that sullies it, that stains it, that touches it in any way. It's so pure, it's so high. This birth of the idea of what love is so high, so pure, so worthy of attainment, desirous of attainment to us. It's a great promise. We have a promise before us. Love has set something before us that's new. It's a new paradigm that we're moving into. And love. It's conceived and born of truth and love. Truth and love work together. Truth and love work together. And the new birth, the new idea, is clad in white garments. It's fully clothed. It's clothed in pure garments. It's a pure consciousness. It will come into us, and at each point along the way, it will be clothed as it should be clothed. It doesn't have to come in like a firestorm and land on us and turn us overnight into something different. It's a birth. It's a child. It's something new, and at each point along the way, it is properly clothed. Properly clothed, clad in white garments. Its beginning will be meek. Its growth sturdy, and its maturity undecaying. That's true whenever you have a law, whenever you have an order that is a law, a divine order that is a divine law. The birth will begin meekly. Every new stage begins meekly. We look back to the 6,000-year period, either as such or in our own lives, we would see that the beginning was meek. But that there was a growth. There's a growth in it, an evolution in it, a divine dynamic within it. This is again the Christ that is in charge of regulating the movement of the evolution, the advancement of the progress. So the beginning is always meek. We should love that. We should love it because it promises that there will be a sturdy growth. That's what comes next. The growth is going to be sturdy. There won't be any going backwards. We can't go backwards. You cannot glimpse the 7,000-year period standpoint and go back to your former sense of the 6,000-year period. You will not leave the 6,000-year period, but you will see that 6,000-year period in a completely new light, in a completely new way. So that growth is sturdy and the maturity of it is undecaying. And what comes next in that paragraph? When this new birth takes place, the infant, the Christian Science infant, will be born of the Spirit. It's born spiritually, born of God, and can cause the mother no more suffering. It's born of God. It's born, you just hear your scientific senses, it's born of the 7 and the 4 and the 4. It's born of the whole system. It's born of the 7 synonymous terms, of the 4 operations, of the 4 levels of being. The whole system gives birth to it within our consciousness. It's born of the Spirit. It isn't born of us, of whether we're able to bring forth something new, bring forth a new view. How on earth can I do that? And I'm so, we may feel I'm so steeped in my old ways, in my previous ways of doing things, and I can't be changed. Yes, you can, and you are. You can be changed, and you are being changed. Rest assured. There is a science that governs change. Didn't we see that at the last summer school? That there is a science that governs all change. And it is the divine system of science that ensures that you are being changed. And that change belongs to the evolution. With every new great step, momentous step in that evolution, there is an enormous change going on. It's only the human mind that doesn't like change, huh? That we don't want to be destabilized. We don't want to be brought into a confused state, a disordered state. Because whenever you have change, you have a new order coming in, a new sense, a higher order, a higher understanding coming in. This involves changing all of one's present framework. Huh? This is going on with each 1,000-year period. Enormous changes, enormous shifts in consciousness. And it's the human mind that doesn't like that. But to the divine mind, this is the natural order. To the mind of Christ within us, then we love that. We're not comfortable in it. It's not easy. No one ever said it was easy. No one ever could say it was easy. But there's something beautiful, and one learns to love it. One learns to love, to be turned upside down, and to be restructured. To be restructured. And I can remember points in my life where I would stop and look at myself and say, you know, I really haven't been changed enough. I need to be changed. Have you ever said that to yourself, feeling that it had been a long enough time, and that I needed a good shift, a good paradigm shift? And by golly, they came. Those shifts came. And they're not comfortable, they're not easy, but they belong to one's spiritual evolution. And that's why we want them. Because we love our spiritual evolution. We should love the fact that we have a spiritual evolution. Because our spiritual evolution, by the way, includes everything else in our lives. Our spiritual evolution, with each new stage, we have a new consciousness. With each new consciousness, we have a new experience. We experience our universe differently. We experience our world differently. Consciousness determines experience. So as consciousness changes and it progresses, we have a changing life experience, and we have a more progressive life experience. And I'm so certain that this is what is happening to us as love breaks in, as that 7,000-year period breaks in, that our experience changes, our view of our world changes. Everything is changing. And if we keep the perspective of the whole, if we keep the perspective of that law of the Word, which is constantly being adapted by the Christ to every individual consciousness, to the collective consciousness, to universal consciousness, then we will love to see what is happening. We will welcome that in. We'll say, I want to know more about that. I want to know more about divine love.